So as we established in my last video in regards to the commandments, we know that they were never done away with at all. They are still implemented and put in place by the Creator to always be followed and observed. Okay. Now, many times where people try to say that, hey, the commandments are done away with, they often try to take you to the Romans and completely twist Paul's words and use it for their own deceitful ways. The irony is that if you actually read the entirety of the scriptures, you would have already foresaw that coming, because Yahweh already warned us about that through his writers. Let's look at Peter, 2 Peter 3:15, and let's read that, and you'll see what I'm talking about before we jump into what they was discussing in Romans. So 2 Peter 3:15, take your notes. It says, bear in mind that our Elohim's patience means salvation, just as our dear brother Paul also wrote you with the wisdom that God gave him. Now peep this part, y'all. He writes the same way in all his letters, speaking in them of these matters. His letters contain some things that are hard to understand, which ignorant and unstable people distort. You see that? As they do with the other scriptures, to their own destruction. You see that? It's things that are hard for many to understand in regards to Paul's writings, right? Because they don't understand the wisdom that Yah gave him in regards to some of the things that he said. So what would they do, right? The ignorant, the unstable people, the people that got agendas, that are biased, they will take Paul's words, twist it and flip it around and be like, see? Like you see with the law, that's ended. That's over. The Messiah came. It's done, and they don't really give you the full context of it. They just want to create this notion that, the commandments are over. They're done. You don't got to do them anymore. It's so funny. But you see that was foretold. Now let's jump back to Romans and we'll see exactly what they was trying to convey. All right, so let's read this in Romans 7, and then I'll break it down for you exactly what the scriptures are saying so you can get how simple it is. Now it says release from the law. So they're like, see, there it is. But let's read it and see if that's what he's talking about, okay? All right, now let's go. Do you not know, brothers, for I am speaking to those who know the law, that the law has authority over a man only as long as he lives? For instance, a married woman is bound by the law to her husband as long as he lives. But if her husband dies, she is released from the law of marriage. So then, if she is joined to another man while her husband is still alive, she is called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from that law and is not an adulteress, even if she marries another man. Therefore, my brothers, you also died to the law through the body of Yahushua, that you might belong to another, to him who was raised from the dead, in order that we might bear fruit to God, Yahweh. For when we live according to the flesh, the sinful passions arise by the law were at work in our bodies, bearing fruit for death. But now, having died to what bound us, we have been released from the law so that we serve in the new way of the Spirit and not in the old way of the written code. So right there, they'll take it and mislead the beguiled and the lost and the easily brainwashed ones. See, that's talking about the law. That's the commandments. No, it's not talking about that. It's talking about the law of sin that is written in your DNA according to your genetic code that you inherited through Adam and Eve. See how it keeps talking about according to the flesh and the sinful inclinations of the flesh, and it's at work in your bodies? And the reason as to why you age and why you die. It's talking about the law of sin. And of course, the Messiah who imparts life takes that burden away by means of the Spirit. You see how the Spirit and the flesh are always warring with each other? And the law of the flesh is to always promote sin, while the Spirit is trying to promote life. And that Spirit proceeds forth from your reigning King, the Messiah, and ultimately through the works of Yahweh. Let's keep reading and see if this is right. God's law is holy. Oh man, I thought he just said it's over, but now he's saying it's holy. Exactly. He's not contradicting himself. He was never talking about the commandments. The written code is the code of sin, right? sin entered into the world, and according to the law, sin is punishable to death. Hence, you age, you deteriorate, right? Your physical bodies go through so much error due to the law of sin that is written in your DNA. It's not talking about the commandments. Let's read in verse 7 of Romans. What then shall we say? Is the law sin? Certainly not. Indeed, I would not be mindful of sin if not for the law. It's talking about the commandments now. For I would not have been aware of coveting if the law had not said, do not covet. But sin, see the law of sin, all in this? They're talking about two different laws. The law of the commandments and the law of sin and death, right? But sin, look at verse 8, seizing its opportunity through the commandment, produced in me every kind of covetous desire, because sin cannot understand law and order. It is disorder. It is chaos. It is that inclination that dwells within you that corrupts. It is the virus that is within your DNA that always wants to do what is bad. It is the darkness, the bad vibration, the negative energy within you that you war with every single day. Let's keep reading. For apart from the law, sin is dead. See that? Once I was alive, apart from the law, talking about the law of sin and death. But when the commandments came, sin sprang to life and I died. See, sin continues to war with that. So I discovered that the very commandment that was meant to bring life actually brought death. How did it bring death? Because sin continues to war against his best pursuits and take him captive right back to where he started all over again. It's like you taking 2 steps forward and you get 3 steps kicked back. That's what sin continued to do every time he tried to go to the commands, right? And it brings him back to that death, death-like, because, sin leads to death. For sin, seizing this opportunity through the commandment, deceived me. See that? And through the commandment, put me to death. Because, it's breaking the laws and the commandments. Sin continues to operate within you. So then the law, now talking about the commandments, is holy. And the commandment is holy, righteous, and good. Clearly, he's not talking about what they trying to twist with Paul's words. And he even goes into more depths that he was talking about sin when you read into the latter chapters. Now look at this, verse 13. Did that which is good then become death to me? Certainly not. But in order that sin might be exposed as sin, it produced death in me through that was good, so that through the commandment, sin might become utterly sinful. See that? We know that the law is spiritual. Talking about the commandments, but I am unspiritual. Why? Because I'm sold as a slave to, you guessed it, sin. See how simple this is? I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I admit that the law is good. In that case, it is no longer I who do it, but it is the sin living in me that does it. I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my flesh, the physical, the sinful man, the sinful, deteriorating physical aspect of life, the physical body. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out because sin keeps fighting him. For I do not do the good I want to do. See? Instead, I keep on doing the evil I do not want to do. And if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but it is sin living in me that does it. You see that, guys? Sin is that warring that you fight every day within yourself. That impulse to do wrong. Ooh, just go ahead and eat that, even though it's breaking the dietary laws. Ooh, let me just break that commandment real quick. It ain't that serious. Ooh, maybe I could do this. Sin is always that voice. It's kind of like that Satan on the right and Yah on the left and the sun. Like, that's kind of what it's like. Sin is always trying to get you to do bad, and it's written in your DNA. That's the law of sin, to get you to sin. It's the very law of it. Let's keep going to 21. So this is the principle I have discovered. When I want to do good, evil is right there with me. Do we not all go through this? You try with your best intentions to do something good, but it's like something always happens that messes it up, and you get so frustrated because you tried your best to do the right thing. But then you're human and you're imperfect, and sin is in you, so you mess up. Now you down in yourself. Now you feeling negative. That's what Paul was talking about. He was saying, I'm just human. This sin is always taking me over, right? So let's keep going. So When I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being, talking about the spiritual man, the spiritual body, right? The more deeper of things that dwells within your soul, your spirit, right? Your chakras, the alignment, the seed of the soul, which is the spirit, which is manifest through your pineal. All this stuff be talking about that, and everybody wanna, oh, don't get me started, but let's keep going. See, for in my inner being, that's within, I delight in God's laws, because the spirit loves the laws of God. The spirit knows God. The spirit understands God. The spirit pleads with God. God transfers his spirit with ours. But I see another law. See that? Two different laws. And work in my body, warring against the law of my mind. See that? Holding me captive to the law of sin that dwells within me. What a wretched man I am. Don't we all feel like that? Keep going. Who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to Elohim. Through who? Right? Yahshua HaMashiach, the Son, the Messiah. Right? So then with my mind, I serve the law of God, but with my flesh, I serve the law of sin. The spiritual body is the one that you need to get in tune with, because the spiritual keeps that physical body in check. You have two things within you that fights every day. Your physical is always fighting your spiritual, and vice versa. Your spirit is what you need to keep strengthened and nourished and observing, because that's what's going to bring you to life. Your physical, if you think things physically, it's going to lead you to a physical life, and you're going to die, and your body's going to become full of darkness, and you're going to lose the good vibrations, the good energy. You understand what I'm saying? That's what Paul was talking about. But the fool, often in religions, will take this and be like, see, he's talking about doing away with the laws. Yeah, the Messiah is the way to the light. He is the way to the Father. He is the keys to the door that nobody can unlock without him. Okay? And by means of the Messiah and the sacrifice, he sets you free from the law of sin and death. And that brings forth life to the spirit. And the spirit can keep the physical in check until your mortal bodies are finally made at one with the spirit in the future events to come. But you have to build up your spiritual in order to keep the physical in check. You understand? That's what he's talking about. But they'll take this as, man, he's talking about doing away with the commandments, and that's the law. Yeah, that's the law, and we're not under that law no more. And they flipped his words, right? So that's something that I always notice, and it makes me laugh, because Romans is actually one of my favorite books, because it gets into detail about the chosen ones that are consistent of the descendants of the tribes of Israel that'll be part of the 144,000. Church, religions, Jehovah's Witnesses will actually take this birthright that is only given to the descendants and those that are part of these lineages and tribes and bloodlines, and just throw it out to the whole world. But that's not true, okay? The hope of the transcending is only given to those who are part of the tribes. You can literally find that in the book of Revelation, where it says that they come out of each of these tribes, and these tribes stem forth from Israelites, the tribes of Israel. So just remember that and keep that in mind. So now quickly let's jump into Romans chapter 8. Walking by the Spirit makes it so clear. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Yahshua. For in Yahshua, the law of the Spirit of life sets you free from the law of sin and death. For the law was powerless to do in that it was weakened by the flesh. But God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful man as an offering for sin. He thus condemned sin in the flesh, so that the righteous standard of the law might be fulfilled in us who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. Those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. The mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Spirit is life and peace, because the mind of the flesh is hostile to God. See that? It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. It is impossible for the flesh to do God's will. That's why you need the Spirit. Those controlled by the flesh cannot please God. You, however, are controlled not by the flesh, but by the Spirit. If the Spirit of God lives in you, and if anyone does not have the Spirit of Yahshua, he does not belong to Yahshua. But if Yahshua is in you, your body is dead because of sin, yet your spirit is alive because of righteousness. See that? And if the spirit of him who raised Yahshua from the dead is living in you, he who raised Yahshua from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his spirit who lives in you. Now we'll go to the hairs that will rule with Yahshua HaMashiach. Therefore, brothers, we have an obligation, but it is not to the flesh to live according to it. For if you live according to the flesh, the physical, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of Yahweh, Elohim, are sons of Elohim. For you did not receive a spirit of slavery that returns you to fear, but you received a spirit of sonship, by whom we cry, Abba, which means Father. The Spirit himself testifies or bears witness with our spirit that we are God's children. If we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Yahshua. If indeed we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. So this position of transcending in the twinkling of an eye, so to speak, and taking on these new bodies in a more spiritual, enlightened way, right? These are only offered to the heirs, the descendants from the tribes of Israel, which we already brought that out. So many people just equate that with all of the nations, but it's not extended to the nations. You have to understand that Yahweh is literally called the God of Israel, and he chosen a group of people to be the people that he was going to place over the entirety of the world. Okay, just because their ancestors fell and lost their way does not mean that Yah has broken a promise. That's against his ways to break a promise. Okay, he never abandoned or rejected his people. He scattered them, and they reaped all those curses that was given in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28. But it also talks about that afterwards they will come back to him, a remnant, and then they will be restored their kingdoms in glory, which will lead to the world getting this ending so that they can have back what was stolen from them, from all these nations and these religions of Babylon, that are now tweaking this story and trying to inculcate themselves into it. But this was always a thing between the Israelites and the God of the Israelites. Okay, the Gentiles can benefit under the arrangement in the future times if they continue to follow the children of Israel, the ones that are actually woke and the ones that are not corrupted, and the ones that are actually sticking to the commandments and speaking love and truth and not hatred and racism in reverse. So as simple as that. Gentiles can benefit and be part of the crowd that survives Armageddon, as it brings out, but you have to be following the commandments and not abandoning the role that Israel plays in the entirety of the scriptures. These are God's children, and from them he will reap the 144,000 only. Now let's go into the future glory. I consider that our present sufferings are not comparable to the glory that will be revealed in us. See, they're going to transform, transcend, take on the fullness of the spiritual body, and it's going to be elevated and raised to the highest vibration that you can go. The chakras completely align. The pineal is completely unlocked into the fullest capacity that you never seen before. Okay, that is what the creation is so eagerly waiting in expectation of, and the 144,000 is a very big deal in regards to them being the bride to Yahshua HaMashiach, and the ones that's going to make up spiritual Zion that will rule the entirety of the world when everything is restored. Okay, so they are part of the lineages and the tribes. Okay, and we know that it's talking about the pineal gland, right, your third eye, because of the simple fact that if you jump to Revelation, where do y'all seal it in regards to the chosen? You guessed it, they got the seal or the name right in their foreheads. Foreheads. What do you think is located in your forehead? Your pineal gland, pinpointed right between the eyebrows, right in your forehead. That is the spiritual antenna, that is the gateway, and that is the route in which Yahweh will make it known that these are the people in which he has chosen. They are completely aligned in that purpose. They are like virgins because they are pure. They are aligned with the spirit. They see things from a spiritual perspective. That's why they are holy. In the spirit of God and the spirit of the Son, Yahshua, pleads in their behalf. And if Yah is for them, who can dare speak against it? Who can dare say anything about it? Because that'd be blasphemy in itself, right? But let's keep reading, you'll see that. I consider that our present sufferings are not comparable to the glory that will be revealed in us. It's within. The creation waits in eager expectation for the revelation of the sons of God. Talking about the anointed 144,000. For the creation was subjected to futility, not by its own will, but because of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God. See, the entire world would benefit under Israel, the ones that are picked from Israel as the 144,000, right, from each tribes, the 12,000 from each tribe that gets you 12,000, 12,000, 144,000. These are the ones that's going into the heavenly realms, and they going there to be kings and priests. It's not like this whole thing that church teach you that everybody die, you just go to heaven or hell, and it subtracts the importance of the earth becoming a paradise. It subtracts the importance of actual Hades, which is hell or Sheol, emptying out the dead that is within them, and it will be brought to ruin and thrown into the lake of fire itself. So hell don't even exist forever. So how can it torment forever when it's going to be thrown into the lake of fire, which symbolizes the second death, non-existence, everlasting cutting off? That's the destruction that ascends and the torment that goes forever and ever and ever, right? It's the ultimate shame. See, they tweak this stuff and don't teach it right, because that's what religion in Babylon does. But let's keep going. But yeah, the entirety of the world, even the Gentiles that stay faithful, that are considered worthy to make it out of Armageddon, that will be part of that great crowd that John saw in the vision, that no man can number, of all tribes, tongues, with the white robe symbolizing submission, with the palm branches in their hand. That's what it's talking about, okay? And also the rest of the actual lineages that were not part 144,000. Israel will rule the world, and the kingdoms and all that will belong to them, okay? That's just a common fact. Now let's go on to 22. We know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until the present time. Now, not only that, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit, talking about the anointed, the chosen, the 144,000, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we are saved, but hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what he can already see? Exactly, right? But if we hope for what we do not yet see, we wait for it patiently. They're waiting for the transcending, right? In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know how we ought to pray, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groans too deep for words. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit. You see how all this is about the chakras, the spirits, alignments, the things within the spiritual body that is separate from the physical, the pineal, the alignment of all of this stuff in which Yahweh works and manifests his Spirit through. What you think the Spirit is? It's energy, frequencies, vibrations. Stop believing in them churches. They're trying to take you away from your essence. But and he who searches out our hearts know the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints, which is the chosen ones, according to the will of Yahweh, right? Or Elohim. So let's end it with this one. God works in all things, which is in regards still talking about those. See, Jehovah's Witnesses to take that and just offer this invitation to anybody at random, like it's a lottery, and you could just work your way in there by doing their preaching work, and like it's like a job. Like if you put in enough hours, you just think you earned it, but it's actually not like that. It's only consistent of the tribes, which are not Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's a doctrine, it's a religion, it's man-made. They don't keep the commandments. If you don't follow the commandments, you're practicing sin, and that's not what the love of God is, because the love of God is only those who keep the commandments. The Messiah made that clear. So don't say you love him if you don't follow the commandments. It just don't work like that. It's literally written, okay? But it's only consistent of the tribal heirs, and we know that the Israelites are black tribes that was whitewashed, and the Gentile nations, the rulers that founded these Gentile nations, stole our books, stole our land, stole everything from us, hid our identities, which was all given in Deuteronomy as part of the curses of the ancestors not keeping the commandments. Hence, they continue to tell you don't keep them. It's done away with. It's done away with. Anyway, let's keep going, and let's end this video. And we know that God works all things together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. Peep this part, y'all. 29. For those God foreknew, he also predestined. See that word? Predestined. They was just chosen. They was chosen before they even existed. They was destined for this. He also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, so that he would be the firstborn among many brothers. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. What then shall we say in response to these things? And I love this part because it's for all the naysayers, the doubters, the haters. If God, who is our Elohim, Yahweh, is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also along with him freely give us all things? Who will bring any charge against God's elect, the chosen 144,000? It is God, Yahweh, or Elohim, who justifies. Who is there to condemn us? For Yahshua HaMashiach, who died and more than that was raised to life, is at the right hand of Yah, or Elohim, and he is also interceding for us. So to speak against the chosen and to challenge the arrangement that was set up by Yahweh in regards to the tribes of Israel, with the 12,000 being picked from each tribe as first fruits to this spiritual awakening in the highest honor, how dare you speak against that? That is the ultimate blasphemy to God. You understand that? You can't question the arrangement. Why he pick Israel? That's who he picked as his nation, to lead the entire world to this understanding, to lead them to him. This was the nation that he always been dealing with. He was never dealing with the outside nations. Churches try to lie and just act like this was always extended to everyone, but it wasn't. For starters, these nations already had gods. They had their religions, and they was doing their customs of idolatry, and all of the things that they did influenced the Israelites to even break the laws in the first place. That's how they lost their kingdom in the first place. That's how they lost everything in the first place, and the world became under the control of Edomites, right? Those who love to practice what is wrong, those who do evil, those who spread racism. You know, the people that stole all of these lands, killed people, enslaved people, raped the indigenous, castrated the men, and used their privates as spoils of war, beheaded people, threw them down to the lions. I mean, the nation was always the people that was doing the evil, that was following Satan, and even got the Israelites to do the same thing and got us in this curse in the first place. And it all started with them peeping accounts from afar and realizing that if we get them to break the laws and believe that they're done away with, we can gain the world, because Yah will not protect them. They will be under a curse for a period of time, and we can expound off of that. We can get rich, we can pillage, we can steal everything in Israel, and they'll be scattered amongst the nations. They already knew what it said, and they know that even now. That's why they continue to tell you the law is done away with, even though the scriptures do not teach that at all. Any scripture they use is definitely a misinterpretation, and it's a lie. The scriptures as a whole is very clear. The commandments are definitely still in effect, and it must be followed. And it's simple to follow that. And you have to follow it by means of a spiritual eye, which is your pineal. Stop looking through your physical eyes. The eye is the lamp of the body, the soul. If it's full of darkness, you will become corrupted to the darkness. If it's full of light, then it will make your mortal dead bodies alive. Stop looking at things from the standpoint of physical things. Religion is physical. Look at it along the lines of your spiritual eye, your spiritual antenna that needs nourishment, okay? Follow that, and Yahweh will direct your steps in the way in which you should walk. And if you are part of the tribes and you believe that you're a part of this chosen, you need to follow the spiritual voice that dwells within you. Okay, that is how Yahweh leads his people. And by means of Israel, will all of the nations, the Gentile nations, the other people, white, Mexican, or black, whatever, if you're not part of these dark black tribes, you will benefit under our rulership and our kingdom under the arrangement of Yahweh. That's why Israel is looked upon as the Savior, because even the Messiah, Yahshua, right, he proceeded from the tribe of Yehuda, which is now called Judah. That's the Negroes, right? And we know that a lot of people in these Hebrew Israelite camps, they don't understand a lot of this stuff too. For starters, the chart that they use is completely inaccurate. It's not really right. The only part that was right was the tribe of Yehuda. But the tribes are all darks, okay? They're the pure bloodlines of the darks that were scattered amongst the nations, okay? Anything that is much lighter and different and have more of a different texture, different type of hair, that means that they come from the colonizers who raped and reproduced and spreaded their seed amongst the indigenous, and then they started to oppress the ones they referred to as Afro. So just putting it out there as truth. But if you are not part of these tribes, need not fear. You have hope too, and we'll touch on that in the video. But you have to follow the arrangement of Yahweh in order to understand these deeper things. And who knows, maybe you might be in the presence of one of those that are part of that 144,000 group. But just stop believing Jehovah's Witnesses in regards to that, because it's not a religious thing, and it's not a thing that you can earn. For starters, it's undeserved kindness that gets you that, and it's only according to the descendants of the people of Israel, and of course the prophets and the people in the scriptures that were chosen as well. And that'll make up the 144,000, in which he hold back the four winds before the destruction comes to the earth. The entirety of the scriptures is centered around Yahweh's people, Israel. Always remember that Yahweh never gave up on his people. They got lost and they gave up on him. Their ancestors, they paid the penalty, and he said that the descendants will remember and come back from their slumber, and they will return to me, but only a remnant will do that. So don't trust everybody either that's of these ethnicities, because a lot of them are going to stay doing evil. Some will even take this information, like I said before, use it to promote reverse racism, evil, hatred, yelling it in the streets, and speaking so much evil instead of expressing that attitude that the Messiah manifested. And they bring reproach on the Creator's name, and they will be paying a penalty in full when all things are fulfilled. But just remember that the law is not done away with. They are lying to you. Following those commandments is very important, and it will lead you to life. And follow the voice of the Spirit. Meditate, breathe, stretch. Stop believing church and superstitions take you away from your pineal gland. They're lying to you about everything. Okay? Much love. Shalom.